we have on the line right now from he's the president of the Upstate Transportation Association. His name is John Tomassi. And, John, thank you so much for coming on the air this morning with us. Good morning.
Good morning.
So our take is, from a selfish standpoint, I think this area would benefit greatly if Uber were to be allowed. It's currently in New York City, but not upstate. What are your thoughts?
Correct. I'm not real familiar with the Utica area in terms of the demand and what's available, but we're not against our Upstate Transportation Association represents livery owners and medical transportation providers across Albany to Buffalo, Binghamton, Utica, all the way across. And no one's opposed to having Uber come in. What we're trying to tell everyone is that what we need is two items, is that downstate New York, you're correct, they're allowed in the 5 boroughs of New York City. And in the 5 boroughs of New York City, they're required to have background checks and fingerprint done. And we're thinking, why would the legislatures not want to protect the public outside of New York City, in New York State? You know,
I do have to say, I've been in New York and was tempted to use Uber, but didn't. My wife and I did not, because we were both worried about, well, who's going to pick us up? I mean, is it going to be some criminal or something? Somebody, some rapist or something? But you're saying that these guys are all fingerprinted, they're all checked. Guys and women.
In New York City, they are.
Yeah.
And this has been a sticking point with not just Uber. We'll call them TNC. They call them Transportation Network Companies. That they don't want to do fingerprinting. They don't want a background check. It just slows down their hiring of drivers. And, well, that may be a little inconvenient. It takes about if you wanted to be a taxi driver in Utica, it would take about a week for you to get your background check and fingerprinting done. Get it back to the taxi base to say, okay, you're ready to drive. That's it, just a week.
Right. I'm not sure that I see anything wrong with that. And I do have to say that when we had the Assemblyman on, Assemblyman Brindisi last week, that was one of the things that he talked about, to make sure that that it came with regulations.
Yeah, and in fact, I asked him that, and he said he was pushing for that as well. So are you saying they're objecting to this?
Yeah, they've actually. I'll give you some examples. Not just locally here. Austin, Texas had Uber about last year in 2015, I believe. And about 6 months into it, there was concern, so a referendum was passed in Austin to require fingerprinting and background check. Both Uber and Lyft left, got out of Houston, said we're not doing it. We're out of here.
So New York, though, is such a gold mine.
Yeah.
They're willing to accept the rules and regulations in the city.
They're willing to do that because they wanted to get into that market. But but outside of that, and they're having issues, getting pushback. New Jersey they're battling New Jersey about fingerprinting. Houston, Texas put it in, and subsequent to them allowing it, decided to put it in, and Uber has simply just ignored it for the last 2 years while they try to fight them. Now they've agreed to do it temporarily because they want to access the Super Bowl. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the real big issue is. It's not difficult to do, but they just and so our concern is, why would the upstate citizens get less protection than those down in the boroughs?
I think I agree with that. When you think about if you are a pedophile, you're a rapist, you're somebody who's struggling with those issues. I mean, boy, what a field to go into if there's no background check or anything. I mean, I would think it'd be something pretty attractive to those people.
Well, there was one earlier this year. It was in, I believe, Houston. It was in Texas, and there was a passenger who accused a driver of sexual harassment. Turns out the driver had a felony drug conviction. Now, had he been a taxi driver, that would have been picked up, and he would not allowed to be a taxi driver. Just wouldn't qualify. But Uber said he's okay.
So, do you think, though, that do you feel that they will, if the legislature here in New York, upstate, were to put this together and come up with legislation that would allow Uber upstate, based on the insurance and all of everything that has to be taken care of, do you feel that Uber or Lyft is the other service, LYFT? Do you feel they would decide not to come upstate?
I don't know. I wish they would. It would be okay. No one's against Uber, but they just. I think their model is just to just blanket with as many drivers and just get in there with as many drivers as they possibly can.
Yeah.
And I mean, the first 6 months of this year, Uber's a big company, but they lost $1.2 billion in the first 6 months of this year.
Wow.
So they've got
right. So we're adding, so regulation, this would be regulation that Uber or their organization would have to, they'd have to fund this.
That was going to be my
expense.
question, yeah.
Right. It's $100 probably to get everything done. It's not a significant thing. Now,
Per driver, though, right? You're
per driver. But this isn't
Still,
just.
though, you could pass
Uber.
that. You could pass that on to the driver. I mean,
right, absolutely. Most of them do, and we're not really talking about. Well, we talk about Uber and Lyft because they're the 800-pound gorillas. A transportation network company can be anyone. So let's say it passed the way Uber would like it. That means you could get an app and open up your own taxi company or your Lyft company or your transportation network company. On your own.
Mine would be called Goober. I'm going to put it right out there, right in the open. You know what you're getting.
Well, you might trademark. That's a good one.
He's not going to be clean, but man, he's going to get you there.
So the point would be that anybody could, under the rules that Uber would like passed, anybody could form a TNC and hire. So you could have somebody at local college in Utica decide to have an app.
Yeah.
And have all his buddies drive everybody else around on the weekends. And no background checks, no nothing.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Yeah. Jack in Rome has a question. Go ahead, Jack. You're on the radio. John Tomassi is the president of the Upstate Transportation Association. Go ahead.
Yeah, Tom, I've been a prior cab driver over my years in Rome. And my biggest beef on this whole deal is if I wanted to put a cab in Rome, I've got to go through my deal with Rome with getting a medallion, a permit and everything. And I have to have insurance. And I think it's like, $10,000 or whatever for a cab to have insurance for a year and stuff like that. I mean, these people are using their own personal cars. I just don't understand it, and I don't see it. I know a lot of it's being done undercover. And like we have a bunch in Rome, I know, that are doing it undercover, acting like cabs, but they don't show it.
Huh.
I don't see this happening for the taxi drivers that pay their money and everything that they do to be legal.
Well, we agree. I mean, what we'd like to see, obviously, part of the fingerprinting and background check is just subject them to the same regulations as taxis. That's
right.
That'd be pretty simple.
Yep.
It's a pretty simple operation. And, a lot of taxi, true, this whole TNC stuff caught taxi companies flat-foot in terms of method. But one of our members down in Utica, he's got an app now, and he says 40% of his rides come through the app. So,
wow.
This will evolve, and all taxi guys are going to eventually have apps.
So you're saying that he's a taxi driver and his taxi service has an app and
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, it does seem simple, doesn't it? I mean, you look up and you can get a rating on them. You can get the cleanliness of the car. I mean, the whole concept really seems to work. But you're right, to not have any background check on these people is opening the door for some creepy stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, John. Well, listen, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Hopefully this happens, and hopefully they will these services will accept the regulations.
We'd like to see that.
All right, John, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Tomassi from the Upstate Transportation Association. He is the president.